All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we're going deep, like really deep.
Deeper than a double jump into a bottomless pit in your favorite retro platformer.
Ha, yeah, something like that. But this time, we're exploring a treasure trove of gaming history, the Video Game History Foundation's brand new online library.
And the best part, it's completely free. The VGHF is all about making sure video game history is preserved and accessible, and this library is a massive step in that direction.
Accessible is right. They've got over 1,500 digitized gaming magazines. We're talking those classic out-of-print ones that are practically legendary at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Remember flipping through GamePro, desperately searching for cheat codes, or just drooling over those pixelated screenshots?
Oh, I remember it well. For our younger listeners, those magazines were like, well, they were our Google-like then.
Exactly. They were our window into the gaming world. And thanks to the VGHF, now anyone can experience that magic.
Okay, so mountains of vintage gaming magazines, that's cool. But what else is hiding in this digital vault?
Well, things get even more interesting when you consider they also have a ton of unreleased development documents.
Unreleased documents? That sounds pretty niche. What would the average gamer find exciting about that?
Oh, there's plenty for everyone. Imagine getting to see early concept art for your favorite character, or read about ideas that got scrapped during development.
I guess that would be kind of cool, seeing how a game goes from that first spark of an idea to what we actually get to play. It'd be like finding out Mario was originally supposed to be a baker, not a plumber.
Ha! Exactly. And speaking of iconic games, to get this, they've got a whole section dedicated to Myst and Riven.
Now, those are some classics. I spent countless hours lost in those worlds, just soaking in the atmosphere and the mystery. What kind of stuff do they have for those?
You're not going to believe this, but over 100 hours of never-before-seen footage. We're talking full motion video, behind-the-scenes interviews with the science team, you name it.
Wow, that is incredible. 100 hours? You could practically piece together a whole new game from all that?
Haha, maybe. And it's not just random footage. This archive is actually directly supporting the Myst documentary, the one exploring the development of this game-changing series.
Okay, you've convinced me. This library is pretty incredible. But with this much content, how do you even find anything? It must be like navigating a digital jungle.
Not at all. The VGHF actually partnered with Archive Space and Preservica to design the whole thing. It's incredibly user-friendly, even for non-touchy folks.
So it's not just a giant, overwhelming mess of files.
Nope. Think of it as a supercharged search engine specifically designed for historical archives. You can filter, search, even directly view documents right in your browser.
That's a relief. So we've got mountains of magazines, unreleased documents, hours of missed footage. What else is lurking in this gaming treasure chest?
Well, we also have the personal archive of Mark Littman, a veteran game developer who worked with companies like, Konami, Midway, and Acclaim, to name a few.
Hold on, are we talking about the guy who helped create Mortal Kombat, NBA Jam, Turok? That's a serious blast from the past.
Oh, yeah. His archive gives us a fascinating look into the inner workings of the gaming industry during those crazy years, the 90s and early 2000s, a time of massive growth and change.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So we've got all these incredible resources, but who exactly is this library for? I mean, besides, hardcore gamers like us.
Honestly, it's for anyone who has ever loved a video game, or anyone who wants to understand how this industry has shaped the world around us. Researchers, journalists, even students can use it to see how video games have evolved and how they've impacted culture, technology, even art.
It's true. It's easy to forget that video games are more than just entertainment. They reflect our society, our creativity. They're kind of a big deal.
Exactly. And the VGHF library is a testament to that. It's a resource everyone should explore and, celebrate. It's amazing to think how much has changed. We've gone from those blocky sprites to graphics that look almost real, from simple joysticks to VR experiences that, blow your mind.
Yeah, like you said, it's a time machine. We can literally trace the evolution of game design, see how different genres rose and fell, and even how technology changed everything. You remember those clunky cartridges and floppy disks?
Oh, I remember them well, trying to get online back then with those dial-up modems. Talk about a test of patience. But, seeing those old relics next to the games we have today, it really puts things into perspective.
Speaking of appreciating the past, let's get back to those GamePro magazines. Those pages were like sacred texts for some of us.
They really were. Every issue is packed with reviews, previews, strategy guides. But for me, it was always about the art. Those vibrant covers and those pixelated screenshots, they fueled my imagination, made me fall in love with gaming.
Oh, totally. Those covers were like little masterpieces. And the strategy guides. Lifesavers, I tell you.
Remember the feeling of finally beating that boss after weeks of trying, flipping through those pages, desperate for that one tip, that one trick, and then bam. You crack the code. Pure triumph.
Pure triumph fueled by caffeine and a crinkled magazine. I feel a little nostalgic over here.
Me too. And it wasn't just about the games, it was about the community, the culture, the shared experience. Those magazines, they helped connect gamers in a way we didn't really have back then.
That's a good point. It wasn't just information, it was feeling like you were part of something bigger. I bet those magazines are a goldmine for anyone studying how gaming culture evolved.
Absolutely. They give us a glimpse into the language, the trends, even the controversies of the time. A reminder that video games have always been more than just pixels on a screen, right? They're a powerful way to express yourself, a reflection of society, even.
Speaking of powerful expressions, you mentioned some unreleased content from software. What exactly in there? Why is it so exciting?
Well, for starters, they have a ton of material on their early games, like Armored Core, Kingsfield. Those were groundbreaking titles. They laid the foundation for the masterpieces we know today, like Dark Souls. We're talking concept art, design documents, level layouts, even emails between developers.
Wow. It's like getting a peek inside the developers' minds, seeing their ideas take shape over time.
Exactly. Dark Souls was originally conceived as a much more linear experience. These documents let us trace how they experimented, how they eventually landed on the open world, interconnected design we all know and love.
That is fascinating. It really makes you appreciate all the thought, all the work that goes into making these immersive worlds. Imagine how different things would be if they'd stuck with that linear design, huh?
Right. It just shows how creative decisions made years ago can have a huge impact on the entire industry. And who knows what other secrets are waiting to be uncovered in those archives. That's what makes this library so exciting. It's a constant source of discovery, not just for researchers, but for anyone who loves games.
Totally agree. But let's go back to Mark Littman collection for a minute. You mentioned he was involved with some huge titles. What kind of insights does his archive offer?
Well, Mark's career spans over 2 decades, so his collection is incredibly diverse. He was at Midway during the peak of the arcade era, so there's a lot of fascinating stuff on games like Mortal Kombat, NBA Jam, Defender. Later on, he went to Acclaim and worked on console titles like Turok and Extreme G Racing. His archive lets us see that transition from arcades to home consoles, all the challenges of developing for different platforms.
So he was there for like the birth of fighting games, the rise of sports titles, the explosion of 3D console gaming. That's quite a journey.
It really is. And what's so valuable is that his archive goes beyond the games themselves. He saved everything. Meeting minutes, marketing materials, internal memos, even stuff debating design choices.
It's like a time capsule, capturing not just the games, but the whole culture, the business of the gaming industry during this, pivotal time.
Exactly. For example, he's got a whole section on the controversy around Mortal Kombat's violence, how Midway dealt with the public pressure, the political pressure. It's a fascinating look at the challenges developers faced as games became more realistic, more mainstream.
I bet that's a gold mine for anyone interested in game design or marketing or even just the history of censorship, right?
Absolutely. And that's just a small part of what Mark's collection has to offer. It's truly remarkable. We're incredibly lucky he donated it to the VGHF.
Okay, I gotta ask, what about Myst and Riven? You mentioned over 100 hours of footage. What kind of gems are hidden in there?
All right, let's talk Myst and Riven. This is where things get really special. This library has a massive collection of behind-the-scenes content, including never-before-seen footage of the making of these iconic games.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me everything.
Well, first, there are hours of full motion video, or FMV as it was called. Remember those kind of grainy, kind of awkward video clips they used for cutscenes?
Oh, I remember them. Fascinating and a little creepy, all at the same time.
Exactly. And for Myst and Riven, they actually filmed the FMV on location with elaborate sets and costumes. They have footage of the actors doing makeup, the crew setting up, the developers directing. It's amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like peeking through a window into a lost world. I had no idea how much work went into those FMV sequences.
It was a huge undertaking. And what's really cool is they have interviews with the actors, the development team, all reflecting on the challenges and, triumphs of using this technology. It really shows how innovative those games were.
It's like having a director's commentary, but for an entire game.
Exactly. And they have these internal documents that offer insights into the whole design process. You can read early drafts of the story, see sketches of characters and environments, even see how they thought through the logic behind those crazy puzzles.
So we can see how they built those intricate worlds piece by piece.
Exactly. It's a rare look into the creative process of a team that really push the boundaries of storytelling and world building.
This is incredible. It really is amazing to think about all the work that went into preserving this history and then making it accessible to everyone.
It really shows the dedication of the VGHF. They're not just archiving the past, they're making sure future generations can learn from it, be inspired by it, and, build on it.
That brings up an interesting question. With so much gaming history preserved, what about the future? How do we make sure today's games, today's stories, are documented for, future gamers?
That's a great question, and it's something the VGHF is definitely thinking about. Preservation has to evolve along with technology.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's not just about those physical artifacts anymore. It's about digital files, online communities, even streaming content.
Exactly, and that creates whole new challenges. Digital files can get corrupted, servers can shut down, online communities can vanish overnight. So it's crucial that we figure out ways to capture, to preserve these more temporary pieces of gaming culture.
So we need to think about digital archaeology, not just physical archives.
Precisely. And it's not just about the games. It's about the stories, the memories, the experiences of the people who make and play them. Oral histories, player testimonials, even those Let's Plays, they all matter.
It's like you said earlier, it's about the community, the culture, just as much as it is about the games.
Exactly. And who knows what the future holds, right? We've got VR, AR, and who knows what other mind-blowing stuff is coming next.
It's exciting, but it also makes documenting this ever-changing world even more important.
Absolutely. And that's why what the VGHF is doing is so important. They're leading the charge in preserving gaming history and making sure it stays accessible.
I'm really glad we got to talk about all this. This library is a true gift to the gaming community. I can't wait to explore it more myself.
Me too. And I encourage everyone listening to do the same. You never know what you might find.
It's amazing to think how much of that history we almost lost,
Yeah, it's true. For a long time, video games were seen as just, well, disposable entertainment, not really worth preserving.
Thankfully, that's changing. And organizations like the VCHF are really leading the charge, making sure these stories are saved and shared.
And speaking of stories, I keep thinking back to those unreleased documents from software.
Me too. What was the one thing that really stood out to you from all those files?
Oh, there were so many fascinating details. But one thing that really struck me was the amount of collaboration and experimentation that went into making those games.
Yeah.
Like in the early designs for Dark Souls, you can see how the team was really struggling with the idea of difficulty. They wanted to make a challenging game, but they didn't want it to be unfair or frustrating.
Ah, so that notorious Dark Souls difficulty, it wasn't just about being, sadistic, right? It was a deliberate choice.
Exactly. They wanted to push players to their limits, but also reward them for sticking with it. And it's fascinating to see how they, came up with that formula. Through trial and error, constantly refining their ideas.
It makes you think about all the things we take for granted as gamers. We just pick up a controller and expect these intricate worlds, these complex mechanics to just work. We never really think about all the work that goes into it.
That's a great point. And that's why I think understanding the history of video games is so important. It helps us appreciate the artistry, the craftsmanship behind them.
Speaking of artistry, we have to talk about Myst and Riven one last time, those behind-the-scenes interviews. Anything surprising come up?
One thing that really stuck with me was just how passionate the team at Cyan was about creating this truly immersive experience.
Yeah.
They wanted players to feel like they were stepping into a real world with a history, a culture, secrets to uncover, and they went to some extraordinary lengths to do that.
Okay, give me an example. What kind of extraordinary lengths are we talking about?
Well, for instance, the team actually traveled to different places around the world, taking pictures, making sketches, all to use as inspiration for the environments. They even worked with linguists to create languages for the different cultures in the game.
Wow. They really went all out. It's no wonder those games had such an impact on people.
Exactly. It's a great example of how games can be more than just entertainment. They can be works of art that transport us to other worlds, make us think in new ways.
I think we've officially reached the end of our deep dive. And it's been quite a journey. I feel like I've learned so much about gaming history.
Me too. And remember, this is just a small part of what the VGHF library has to offer. There are so many stories out there.
Yeah.
It's up to all of us to explore them, share them, and, make sure they're preserved for the future.
If you're a gamer, a history buff, or just someone who loves a good story, I really recommend checking it out. It's a true treasure trove.
And it's free. Anyone with an internet connection can access it from home, on the go, whenever you have a few minutes.
So what are you waiting for? Go explore the world of video game history. You won't be disappointed.
And if you find something cool, share it. Let's keep that spirit of gaming alive.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Sharing our passion and celebrating this incredible legacy of video games.
Hear, hear.
All right, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.